Hello and welcome to Geeky Guys. If you're into geeky things, we're the guys for you. Hey there guys, how's it going today? Hope you're doing well. In today's video, we're diving into our first look at the new Commander 2021 product. And this product, in case you didn't know, although it's sort of publicized everywhere, even so. But anyway, in case you didn't know, it is being released alongside the Strixhaven set. So it is thematically tied to the set. So a lot of the stuff that you're going to sort of see, some of the themes and mechanics and whatnot, are going to be reflected in Strixhaven. Now, we haven't got the full Commander deck lists as of yet, but that's not what we're really going to do here today. We're just going to go over some of the commanders that they actually have spoiled. Now, I believe from what I was reading that there is only going to be one legendary commander in both of the colors. So, you know, I might be wrong on that. I might not be right on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's much like the previous commander sets that they just released alongside a couple of the other sets. But then again, they might have a couple other commanders, sub-commanders, as they always say, that actually conform to having the necessary other colors. But at any rate, these are going to be the main face commanders that we're going to talk about today, because usually those are the most interesting for the most part, that they usually try to put a lot into. And to be honest, I don't think a lot of them are that interesting to me. Like, two of them are quite interesting, in my opinion, just at least. But the others, yeah, they're not that interesting just to me, in my opinion. Maybe you guys will get some inspiration from them. But anyway, I didn't know whether to sort of start with the couple that I was most interested in, or the ones that I was less interested in. But I thought, the good news, bad news situation, when somebody says, oh, I've got good news and bad news to tell you, which one do you want first? A lot of people say, oh, well, give me the bad news first, so that they can sort of stomach, the bad news, and then be like, okay, alright, that's hit me for a loop now, give me some good news, come on please. Sort of thing. So I'm going to start with the ones that I don't really think are sort of that good, just in my opinion, and just sort of the way that they've been sort of designed. So I'm going to start out with the Golgari commander first, Willow Dusk Essence Seer. So this commander, 1 and Golgari, so a black and a green. So 3 mana, 3/3. Dryad Druid. Pay 1 and tap it. Choose another target creature. Put a +1/+1 counter. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of life you gained or lost this turn. Whichever is greater, activate this ability only as a sorcery. So Golgari Life Gain, Golgari Life Loss sort of deck, where you're also putting +1/+1 counters on your not commander for the most part. Because if this is, and this is why I sort of said I want to sort of know why this is in the deck, or whether there's another commander that you can actually put in the deck for the face commander or whatever. This is sort of a very supportive card. So if this is your commander, it's not that good in my opinion, because in theory you want to get in Voltron damage with this. This is the idea that they're trying to push, in my opinion, to a degree at least. Because sure, you can make your life total 1, or you can make your life total lower than 1 sometimes if you've got certain enchantments or artifacts or whatnot out. and then exchange your life total with one of your opponents, and then be like, okay, cool, I lost, 40 life or whatever this turn, but I also gained 41 life or whatever it was this turn, so I'm just going to put 41 counters on my creature, and then I'm going to go to combat, attack with my creature. This is on turn 5 as well, probably, and then I'm going to Voltron kill somebody else. So you kill 2 people, sort of straight away, if you could get this off. But that's a really cool thing to do, but like, in a way. But again, it just sort of feels very like, well, this isn't the commander then, so what are you doing with this? Like if this is your commander, you're trying to get in those things that you can basically quote unquote Voltron people out with. So in other words, you literally have to put yourself to 1, or basically 1, or you basically have to put yourself to below your starting, or below 0 basically. So it's going to be really difficult to get your life total that low, to a degree, without somebody just being like, okay, at instant speed, I'm going to, deal some damage to you, or I'm going to sacrifice my creature and I'm going to make you lose 1 life and I'm going to gain 1 life, or something like that. Those effects that are out there, somebody's just going to go, oh cool, you put yourself to 0 life or whatever, okay cool, so you can't lose the game because of this other blah 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 thing, whatever. Alright, in response I'm going to destroy it or exile it or whatever, and then you just die. So it's just like, that's a thing that can go really wrong with this sort of thing. You're going to try to exchange your life total with somebody else, and somebody else will be like, oh okay cool, in response, do something else. Okay cool, you're going to put all your counters on to that creature. Okay cool, Swords to Plowshares, whatever, so while it's still 1/1 or whatever it is, or 2/2 or whatever it is, so there's just so many things that I think, with this deck, and again, this is what sort of has become of things, like, it seems cool, it seems like a different, unique way to build around, unless again you sort of can combo people off and just kill people straight away. I think the whole putting your +1/+1 counters on creatures is just kind of irrelevant. So this just doesn't actually offer you really anything. It doesn't offer you a lot. You still do a lot of these tricks where you put yourself to negative life and then try and exchange your life total, or exchange life totals with another player. So this just doesn't give you any of that actual stuff. It's just giving you counters to work with on a creature. And yes, sure, it's not always going to be your thing dies to removal, because sometimes it doesn't happen, but again, it's just like, that's where things are, that this sort of thing is very disruptible, and you've got to be aware of that, and you've got to be prepared for that, and you can't just be like, oh, I'm all in on this, and then you're like, oh cool, now I'm sad because now my whole thing that I was trying to do doesn't work because Swords to Plowshares got me. That's it, I'm dead, I guess, or whatever, Generous Gift got me. I have a beast, but now I'm at -5 life or whatever it is, and cool, great. I'm dead, I guess. That's the problem with it. But anyway, maybe there is something in this deck that you can sort of find, but we'll wait and see till it's out. And again, I'm going to do these deck upgrades when the full decks are revealed, and I've done the spoiler videos for the new set, but yeah, that will be after that. But anyway, next up is Brina, the Dream Ogre. I think that's how you pronounce it. 1 in Orzhov, so a white and a black, for a 1/3 flyer. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card, and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. So it's kind of like some of that political sort of control sort of stuff, where you're like, hey, look, if you attack one of my opponents, you can draw some cards as long as they meet that other requirement of having more life, blah blah blah, and I'll just get a few counters or whatever. But it also works for you in that quote-unquote Edric style, so you can go out there and go, oh, okay, I'm going to attack that person that I need to attack, and I'm going to get some counters on my creature, and, you know, draw a card. You know, that's pretty good. You know, I don't know whether this is exactly the face of the most, like, like, of the, style, because, like, Black just doesn't have a lot of this sort of, you know, group hug-ish sort of, group sort of slug sort of style stuff that much. It doesn't really have this sort of thing that much. White has a very limited amount of it, and a lot of it just isn't, like, good enough to sort of, you know, put a complete cohesive deck around. There's maybe a couple of pieces that you can toss into this deck. Again, of course, we don't know the full deck list, so they might have a couple of those cards already in here, and they might print some more cards, of course, but again, it's just sort of like, this is a very untested space to a degree, and you're going into an area that there isn't a lot of support for. So I'm not 100% on this. Like, yeah, sure, you'll get it in, like, if you have this specific card in your deck, like, sure, you'll get it in every once in a while, because it does have flying, the evasion, and then it will get bigger and bigger if you put the +1/+1 counters on it. So it eventually become a really good threat in the air, and then nothing will be able to stop it, except, you know, swords to plowshares and whatnot as well. I'm just rereading this just to make sure. Player attacks opponents. Opponents have more life. Opponents are attacking that. Can you put it there? So it's for 4 damage, I believe, in rereading this card, which is what I just wanted to double check. So I do believe that it happens before you've dealt combat damage. So that means that when you're attacking, you actually get the card before you've dealt the damage, and you also get the counters before you've dealt the damage. So if you're actually doing this, you actually get the 2 counters straight away. So if this is the one thing that you're actually swinging with, because this is probably the best thing to swing with, you know, plus again, it's very cheap mana wise, so, you know, and evasive, so you're getting in there for a good 3 damage flying, and, you know, 5 toughness is really tough to sort of get rid of, plus you're drawing a card. So even if it does die in that red zone, which is super unlikely on turn 3 or 4 or whatever turn you get this out on, you know, that's going to be a real threat eventually, and, you know, that's going to be really good. But again, just like, I'm worried, like, I'm not worried about this card itself. This card itself seems good, but the reason I'm a little bit more met on this and this whole deck and doing this is like, because again, like, we could say, oh well, what about in the 99 of another deck? Yeah, sure, and the same with that other commander. Again, like, sure, that's cool, but again, we're more talking about this card specifically heading this deck. If you're going to go into your local game store, go to your Target, go to whatever Walmart and pick this up off the shelf and say, okay, I'm going to pull this and bring it home and then play it with my friends, you know, what should you expect? You should expect, oh well, if I'm going to actually build a deck with this, you know, and put, you know, $50 into it and whatever else, or $100 into it, see how I go, or whatever, you're just like not going to get that far with this, I don't think, because again, there's just not enough support for this please hit my opponent's sort of deck in these colors. But again, if you want to go into maybe 3 or maybe 4 colors, but again, like on a budget, that's difficult. But again, if you want to go into more colors, I think you have much more options. But again, not many of them are black, so you're probably going to be reliant on white or green or blue, mostly for some of that. So yeah, you know, that's how it is. The next one is in fact the Izzet Commander. It is in fact Zalfi Thunder Conductor, 2 and an Izzet, so a blue and a red, for a 1/4. It has Magecraft, which is the new Strixhaven mechanic keyword, basically. So whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, that is Magecraft's ability. So this card's Magecraft ability is to, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, you scry 1. If that spell's mana cost is 5 or greater, you also get a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. But if that spell's converted mana cost is 10 or greater, this commander card actually deals 10 damage to an opponent chosen at random. So that is good that it, you know, sort of does it to your opponent, so you can't be involved in like, oh, just randomly I just dealt 10 damage to myself. Great! You know, but that's one of the worst things that ever happens with a lot of these. I'll roll at random. Oh, I hit myself. Okay. Oops. I don't understand that, but you know, like, you know, when you get like these 2 or 3, well, 2 of these effects, you're not going to get the 3 very often. But when you get these 2 or 3 effects, you know, like scry 1 and then you get a 4/4, yeah, sure, those are pretty good. The problem with this is you've got to be casting some instant sorceries and you've got to have a lot of mana really to do it, you know, so it's going to be hard for you to actually get that mana going, like early on. Late game, yeah, sure, you'll start getting it. Yeah, you'll certainly be, you know, casting 1 5-drop and another 5-drop. And I do think you really need to be casting spells that actually also put bodies onto the battlefield, or at least do something that, you know, protects you, stroke, deals damage to your opponents, or gets rid of other threats. So you need to be playing either a lot of board wipes, or you need to be playing a lot of spells that basically make little creatures and things like this, so that you can just chump block a lot of stuff. Because, you know, even if you're in a combo centric meta sometimes, like, yeah, sure, that's a different archetype completely than what I would be talking about, but even then I still think you want something to do with the things that you've got. Like, if you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna cast this thing and somehow combo off with it, I don't think that this commander gives you much ways to do that. Like, there is that one combo where basically if you put the infect plate onto this thing, or give it infect in some way, that you can basically shoot somebody for 10 infect at random. So, you know, like, and if you can do it twice in a row or whatever, again, you know, you somehow probably kill 2 people. But finding the 10 mana or greater instant or sorceries is probably going to be the bad or the hard part. Plus, not just that, just casting them. But if you go down the expel route, maybe you can get there. But again, just getting the mana and having the mana for long enough and having everything sort of line up where people go, oh, I'm going to put the infect plate onto my commander, and no one responds. Or even if you cast it, you're just like, I'm going to play the infect plate, and no one does anything while my commander's out on the battlefield. It's sort of like very magical Christmas land that you're living in, where you think that people aren't going to go, oh crap, we need to get rid of that, or oh no, oh no, counterspell that shit, get it out of here. Or I will Sword to Plowshare your commander. No. You know, like, it's just one of those things people are gonna say removal for that very specific point because they know it exists. So, you know, again, you're sure you'll get it off once every now and again, but I think it's very Magical Christmas Land to get it off, because again, just having the amount of mana that you would actually need again, just to actually do that part, it's such a long shot. Yeah, sure, again, as said, you can do it. It is theoretically possible, but, you know, by the time you've already got to that point, plus again, like, you're not in green, and or at least with this deck you're not yet, until you upgrade it into a green deck or whatever. So your ramp's very difficult. You're not going to get there quickly. You're not going to be like, oh, unless you're playing Storm or something like that with this. But this wants you to be casting lots of big spells, I think. You don't want to be just like, oh cool, I just cast this 2 mana ritual, this other 2 mana ritual, this other 2 mana ritual. Sure, I get to scry for each one of them, but scrying that much just isn't, like, it doesn't do enough for you. Yeah, sure, you're getting some filtering, but, like, unless you can find that big card eventually, somehow, and also draw it to your hand with some of these Magecraft abilities, you know, you're really just not gonna get there. You're just like, oh, okay, I've got all this mana, and I can either storm off and actually kill people with another effect. Am I trying too hard to get, you know, the 5 mana or the 10 mana thing? I think it'd be easier just to storm off and actually kill everyone with something like Empty the Warrens, or with whatever the mono red spell is that has Storm that deals the damage to an opponent or any target, basically. I think that would be much easier than trying to be like, oh, I'm going to make all this mana and then I'm going to cast a 10 mana thing. There's not that many 10 mana spells, there's like 2 or 3, and, you know, like, again, you're in the 99 singleton format, 99 card singleton format, or 99 cards in your library at least. So unless you've got a lot of tutors, again, you're just not going to get it, and again, just like, the mana's very hard to get to, I think. So it is kind of cool, but to me, I just think, you know, you want to think about how, you know, like, is this really going to do me that much, or do I just want to go down the route of putting some things in there that are generically good, and then maybe I'll get to that once in a blue moon. Yeah, cool, but I have other ways to sort of win. So I think that a lot of this hype around, like, oh, I can do infect damage kills to somebody at random and whatnot and all this sort of thing. Yeah, just calm down. It's probably never going to happen. And you shouldn't just have that one win condition sort of in your deck be like the only thing that you know you can do to win. Like, you need other ways to win, not just one thing. Alright, anyway, I'll get off the high horse with that and move on to the last two. And I'm going to start with probably the most powerful one, just in my opinion, but I want to talk about the other ones last. So Adrix and Nev, twin casters, the Simic commander, 2 and Simic, so a green and a blue for a 2/2. It has this ability Ward, or Ward 2, so whenever somebody tries to target this creature with a spell or an ability, well, one of your opponents at least, you get to counter it unless that a player plays 2 more mana. So it has that ability to sort of pseudo protect itself a little bit, which is kind of cool, but its main ability, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. I really like this. I think this is really good. I think this is really great. I think this is a good direction to go into this, because you know, to me, a lot of the Simic commanders that I've seen over the last few years have been just like, lol, here's my combo, I win, you know, like Kinnan and Thrasios and a lot of others have just been like, oh, here's my combo, I win, lol, sort of thing. This is a creature deck, unless of course you've got some weird combo where you can create a token and do something really weird with it. This is a deck that I'd like to build. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, I'm not sure, but the thing is, this is the style of deck that I would actually probably build something around this sort of commander, or I would at least throw it in the 99 of a deck somewhere, because it's a really good effect, you know, like, just Parallel Lives is a very powerful card, and slapping that onto a creature that, you know, the Vorinclex basically with the ability, you know, where it's doubling season, essentially, not 100%, but essentially it's doubling season on its ability, but it also harms the opponent's counters. You know, that was a very good creature effect, you know, and just like this on a creature, it's fine. You know, I don't know how much exactly support there is for it in blue, but there is a few things that make tokens in blue, so, you know, there's probably there's a lot certainly in green, so I think your base green with some blue stuff in here just to sort of fill it out and some counter spells and whatnot maybe, and then maybe a little bit of blue removal because, you know, green has Beast Within and like a few artifact and enchantment removals, but that's about it, you know, like you really need more removal. Like blue doesn't have much to remove artifacts and enchantments, except for maybe counter spells, but again, it can deal with creatures to a degree, you know, Pongify, Reality Shift, those sort of cards do exist, so those are fairly good. So I really think that this style of deck has a really, you know, big opportunity, and you know, a lot of people will probably want to build around this because it's a really strong effect, in my opinion at least. And you know, again, people want to build things that they know will work for the most part, and everyone knows Simic is really good. It is a little bit disappointing that it is in Simic for that reason, because it's kind of like, well, Simic gets all the good stuff, you know, like green and blue get all of the good stuff, whereas the rest of the colors are kind of being just left out in the cold a little bit. But you know, again, even so, I still like this effect, and I still think it is quite good, and I still think it is worth playing with this sort of effect. I'd much rather play with this sort of thing and see other people play with this sort of thing than, you know, watch people play Solitaire for 2 hours with Kinnan Bonner Prodigy and things like that. So, yeah. But that's that. Anyway, the last one, surprisingly to some people, this is the card that I actually think is the best out of the lot. Really, or almost the best at least. It's certainly either number 1 or number 2, really, in my opinion, which is the Boros one. And surprise to anyone that would ever think that Boros had anything good, but this one I think is pretty good. So it's 2 and Boros, so a red and a white for a 4/4 with Vigilance. And it is Oscar the Returnator. Oh, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, I think so. But anyway, so first ability, you pay 1 mana, you sacrifice an artifact, and 1 target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That's not that bad, you know, just like, I'm going to destroy some of my useless artifacts that I have flying around, and I don't think you're really equipment based in this deck, you want other sorts of things, so, but anyway, you sort of want these, you know, generic little artifacts around so that you can sacrifice them and just like throw them onto your creatures as buffs, basically, and then they're in the graveyard. Oh, and by the way, while they're in the graveyard, you can pay X and tap Oscar to exile an artifact card with CMC X from your graveyard, and then create 2 tokens that are copies of that exiled card. You can only do this as a sorcery though. This is one of the best Boros designs that they've come out with in absolutely ages. This is a great design, this is a great, thing that I think, this is sort of that trash for treasure sort of style of effect, kind of a little bit. It's that kind of Goblin Electromancer, not Goblin Electromancer, Goblin whatever it is, the one that tutors something to your graveyard and then you sacrifice it, or Goblin Welder sort of style effects, like you can sacrifice an artifact to put an artifact from your graveyard onto the battlefield. So this is kind of like that. It's kind of like that other one that tutors, but I can't remember its name, but it doesn't tutor of course, but whatever. It does that effect where basically you're getting value out of having these artifacts in your graveyard and being able to do something else with them. And it also just gives you the ability to sacrifice them on the creature. So if the artifact that you have in your deck doesn't have the ability to sacrifice, then you can just sacrifice it with this guy's actual ability, which is really, really good. Even though it's 1 mana and that mana gate is kind of a thing sometimes, that's fine. I still think that this is quite powerful, and I think you could throw Teshar into this deck and some other things like that. This deck would actually be quite good, and I still think you could play a good shell with this. Like, there isn't the huge amount of support with this, but maybe again they'll put more support in the deck with this. But again, just like there's lots of broken things that you can actually do with this. This is not a deck that I would probably go about trying to build or try to play, because I think it's either going to be combo-tastic and you're just going to be like, lol, I'm going to take 20 minutes to actually do something, or lol, I win. But, there are certain ways I can see that you can, just get generic value, and eventually you're going to get enough generic value out of exiling things out of your graveyard, and getting 2 copies of them. That's really good. And, again, you can put things like Anointed Procession and whatnot, things like that into this deck, so that when you get a token, you get 2 tokens instead, and when you get 2 tokens, you get 4 tokens. So then those tokens sort of quote-unquote aren't exiled again, but they are, because they will go away in the same way that the other ones will. But again, you're getting that much value out of them. And there are other things, hopefully, again, we'll get more, but again, there's just other things that you can do with this. Play Solemn Simulacrum, which is probably a card that you would play in a deck like this, because again, you're not in green, and you need some amount of land ramp. Oh wait, I'm just going to sacrifice it to draw a card. Oh look, now I'm going to pay 4 mana, get 2 copies of it, and double ramp, and then, you've got 2 more Solemns that you can do something else with. Yeah, sure, they're exiled copies of Solemn, but again, if you have other effects, you can still do something with them. You can, figure out something to do with these things. And again, if there's a way in which you can, maybe burn people for damage, or turn them sideways, or just use them as blockers or whatever. There's just so many things that you can do with this. Like, again, it does give you that ability to put +2/+0 onto a target creature, and of course you can target himself. So again, you might be able to get into Voltron damages with this, maybe, I'm not sure. But at least it's not like, this is an equipment deck, this is a Voltron deck, that's all it is. It's just like, yeah, you can go down that route, but there are all these other options, which is really cool and really interesting. And I think this is a really great step that they've taken, finally giving Boros and, these other decks that seem to have never really done anything except, oh, we'll play equipment tribal, I guess, you know, because that's all we get, or we'll play attack triggers tribal, oh boy, you know, which isn't bad, but it's just been like, that's all they've had for so long, and it's just been kind of like, can we please have something else? And it's like, yes, this is great. Finally, we have something where we can, you know, do something tricky and something different and something unique. And it's certainly a really interesting build around. So, you know, those have been the commanders. You know, guys, tell me what you think about these commanders down there, right in the comments, and let me know. But certainly, when, as I said, the full decks are revealed, I'll be going through them, and we'll be doing our quote-unquote traditional, even though we've only just started in the last couple of years, pre-con power-ups. There are going to be more than last year, of course, but as well as that, when the spoiler season is over, which will be only in a couple weeks' time, I'll be putting up more videos about the cards from Strixhaven proper set. So be on the lookout for those as well. Be on the lookout for much more content that I'm putting out up in the next couple of weeks and so forth. So that's about it. Again, let me know what you think down there in the comments below. Please remember that the success of channels like this is based on viewers like you, so please consider liking, sharing and subscribing if you would like to support this content. You can also get social with us on our Discord and on our Facebook. If you would like to further support the channel, you can go onto our Patreon. All links are in the description. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot. Hope you have enjoyed this video here today, and if you have, I hope you will come back for another one. See you then.